the show with your friend and mine. So tell me, Dr. Squee, who's it gonna be this time? We like to hear you talk, and we love to hear you listen. And if you are not subscribed, you won't know what you're missing. So welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Headphones up, here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. I'm Dr. Squee and this is my show. Guys, we've got an exciting 2-interview night tonight. So we've got another one now, but we will not worry about that now. What we're going to worry about is my guest right now. My first guest tonight is legendary music promoter and manager turned filmmaker now. He's worked with Green Day, Nirvana, Placebo, Smashing Pumpkins, and is here to talk about his new film, which tells the story of his early start in the music business, which saw him bringing Iron Maiden to Dundee. And that film is Skimmers. And let me just bring out the poster right now. Please welcome to the Dr. Squee Show, Dave McLean. How are you doing today, Dave?
Bloody marvellous, mate. And I loved your intro tune there. It was very... it's very psychedelic-y, I thought. It was very, very good, so yeah, epic stuff, that was.
Excellent. My friend Lizzie, who came up with that, will be very pleased to hear that. So
I'll
pass that on. Thank you.
Credit where credit's due, mate, you know?
Yeah. So why this film now? So obviously you've had this kind of really big career in music, and I love this kind of telling of your early days in Dundee, building up to that. Why did it seem important to tell it now?
Well, my band, one of the bands I managed, weren't really doing much, so I thought I need to do something to keep my mind occupied, you know. So I thought I'll write a film. Well, I was going to write a book. Well, I have written a book, but I was going to write a book, but that was too hard because it's kind of too much to do. So I thought a film's easy, you know. So I'll do a film, and that's what I did, just to fill in the time when I wasn't really doing nothing. So that's it, really.
I like the fact that it's like, film's nice and easy. I'll just brush one of those together.
Yeah, well, it was really because I wrote the script in 10 days when I went up to Koh Samui. And I just had a routine, and I did 2 hours after breakfast, then went to the spa, then did 2 hours, then went to the pool, then did 2 hours, then went to the bar at night, and then did 2 hours. And I was sat on the balcony and just did it. And I did it in 10 days. Came back to London, showed it to a few people who thought they would change it, and then they changed it all. Then it eventually came back to the original one I had. So that was it. So it was good.
How do you go about crafting the story, the story of the early days of your life?
Well, it's easy because because it's true, you didn't really need to make anything up. You know, it's just like, it's just as it happened. So it's not like it's sort of rocket science. You just think, right, what happened there? Right, that happened that day, that happened there, this happened, blah, blah, blah. And all this stuff about you need to get the arc in this and whatever you need to do with making movies. I just wrote it as, this is what happened. So that's what happened.
So this is a very literal translation of what happened at the time.
Yeah. Just, that's it, you know. So there's no great skill involved in it. It's just like anybody that has a story, you can tell your story. That's the way I look at it, you know.
I mean, there are some amazing events then which take on a new life if this is exactly told as experienced. Because the things which have to go in the right order for this to happen. So it starts off with you being a budding football player. Pardon for the dogs in the background.
That's okay. That's okay.
Starts off with you being a budding football player, and then an injury was what caused you to go towards music.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wasn't brilliant. I mean, I was good. And then unfortunately, one day before a game, it was a very frosty pitch. I remember it was very frosty and firm. And I had a double vodka before the game, and it kind of inspired me to think I was more like George Best than I actually was. And I was kind of taking the piss out of this guy who I was playing against, and he just hacked me down and broke my leg, and that was that. So, and it was like tibia, fibula, ankle, the whole thing was knackered, like, you know. So I stopped playing football, but not that I would have been in the Hall of Fame or anything like that, you know. But
and it seems so matter of fact that, you know, I love the fact that it seemed kind of true to life that your parents are so concerned. You're like, that's fine, I'll just go to music now.
Yeah, well, I just drifted into music I was never a big music fan. My brother was the music guy, and I was the football guy. I mean, he knows much more about music than me. And I only got into music because I fancied a girl at the college, and I thought I couldn't pluck up the courage to speak to her. And my mate John said, he kept saying, "Look, just go and speak to her." And I said, "I can't speak to her. She's amazing." He said, "You know what? We need money for football strips." I went, "How's that going to help?" He says, "Well, we'll run a disco, and we'll get tickets, and you can go and sell them the tickets. So that will be your introduction." So that's how it all started, just because of one girl. And I went across, and so I didn't sell the tickets. I went across, and he said, and I chatted to the girls, there was 4 of them. He says, "How'd you go?" And I says, "Great, they're all coming to the disco." He says, "Great, that's £4, 4 times £2.50, 10 quid, amazing." I said, "No, they're all on the guest list." He went, "Fuck, how are we going to make any money?" So that was that. But
yeah, you don't get many girls by selling them tickets.
No. It's a kind of guest list situation, that was. So it all started from that. And that was it.
And in the film, I did love the fact that there seemed to be, I mean, there were so many vibes which I got from kind of other music and independent films like Commitments, Trainspotting, Lock, Stock. There was even a bit of, I felt a bit of Wolf of Wall Street in one moment even. There was just loads of these lovely moments. Yeah. Were there things which inspired the way you told the story? I know it's a real life story, of course.
It was like, I kind of wanted, yeah, there was actually. There's a film that I really loved when I was younger, called Gregory's Girl. I don't know if you saw Gregory's Girl.
Yeah, I love that one. With Claire Grogan and
Gordon. Is it John Gordon Sinclair?
That's it.
Yeah, and I just thought that had a warm humour to it, and there was a great Scottish comedian in it called Chick Murray, who only had a very, very small part as the headmaster. "You boy," he shouted, "you boy." And there was a line where Gregory hardly ever sees his dad, and they're passing each other on the stairs, and his dad goes, I know you. You're Gregory. We should meet someday. Have lunch, maybe dinner. Be great." I thought this is great. This film. It's just a warm feeling, And I thought if I could make it anything resembling that would be great. Just like a gentle humour. Nothing too crazy, No,
I mean, that was one of the strengths I found. It just seemed so real. And also it's the fact that it really annoys me these days that there's so many people of my age group who are already resorting to, "Oh, it was so much better in my day," and all this. And this seems to just take on the fact that, no, young people have always been young people. They've always done some stupid stuff along the way, but it works out sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just something to do because there wasn't any jobs in Dundee at the time. I think we had about 28% unemployment, and Aberdeen had 2% unemployment, which is only 60 miles up the road. But all the oil business went to Aberdeen instead of Dundee because we've got a better port here and sort of better facilities. But basically, the sort of council was a bit corrupt at the time, and they obviously didn't get enough money to do it, So that was that. So it went to Aberdeen. So we were all unemployed, and the only job you could get would be real sort of Mickey Mouse stuff, So that was it. So I went to university. My auntie persuaded me. Well, she said, you can go to university. I said, "That's impossible. I've only got 2 O-levels. Woodwork and English." And she said, "Go and get some A-levels." So I went and got A-levels and then went to university. So that was that.
Yeah, and it just seems like, I mean, it's almost like, because I love the clips which kind of set the scene for the time at the beginning. So you see Thatcher, the strikes, all this kind of thing. But it kind of seems like those moments of, sadly enough, hopelessness kind of breed people just giving stuff a chance, because what the hell else are you going to do? Do you think that kind of leads into why you kind of took the chances you did when you were younger?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know what it was. Well, I remember I used to walk into town from the housing scheme that I lived in. No, I'd actually get the bus into town, right? Because I had money to go in. I'd spend all the money in the town, right? So I'd have to walk back about 4 or 5 miles. And when I was walking back in the snow and blizzards and everything like that, I mean, it was really bad. And there was one day it was about 3 feet deep, and I was plowing through the snow all the way back. And I was making up films in my head and music soundtracks to films in my head. I mean, that must have sown the seed for it. You know what I mean? Because it used to take me maybe 2 or 3 hours, maybe 2 hours to walk home. And I would make a film in my head, and I'd have a soundtrack going with the Shangri-Las and all that sort of stuff. And so I think subconsciously that must have been there when I decided to make the film. You know, it's from years ago, but there you go.
And what I loved about it is, you know, you've spoken about how you just wanted to get the real life story out there, and the cast which you put together just seems like real everyday kind of people. They seem like the cool yet kind of real young people of Scotland.
Yeah, they were good. Yeah, really good. I mean, they used to come round to the house here. It was a kind of good family vibe to it. I know that sounds corny, but they used to come round. We used to have dinners here and get drunk and kind of shoot the breeze, whatever that means. You know what I mean? Just talk and have a laugh. And
Yeah.
And there was a great sort of camaraderie thing on it because they were all new, apart from Tara Lee, who'd done quite a few things, and some of the older actors. But the young team we had playing me, Scott, and John were all kind of pretty new, and they were just excited to be there. And it was just a great feeling, and everybody had a good time.
And did it really get as hopeless as it felt at some points of kind of your friend mortgaging up his house and you guys being like in physical threat at some points?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, John was ridiculous. I mean, John, he. Well, I remember this was in the film, but when we were trying to book Iron Maiden, I said, how could we afford Iron Maiden? How could we possibly afford them? He says, you're sitting on it, Dave. I went, what do you mean? You're in it. I went, what do you mean? The house, he said. The house. I'll mortgage the house, remortgage the house. I went, well, how much will you get for it? He goes, $6,000. So, oh, $6,000. Okay, let's see what that gets us in. And that would have got us about as far as like Swiss Cottage from London, because when I talked to the agent actually said to me, oh yeah, you can get Pink Floyd, it's going to cost you £1,000 a mile or something. I went, £1,000 a mile? Seriously, that was it. So I said, get the A to Z. And we worked it was about £1 million, and I thought, fuck, mortgage in the house will get you as far as Swiss Cottage. So I always remember that was quite funny. Yeah, there's all sorts of crazy stuff going on, just trying to get money. And we were always, but in fact, we ran out of printers in Dundee because we used to get tickets printed for gigs and never pay the printer. So we ran out of printers to go. We eventually had to pay some bills. It was the same with posters. We had to dodge everybody in the street and kind of, it was terrible.
I mean, I alluded to the physical threat there as well. Like there were legit mobsters which you got involved with to get this done. I mean, firstly, what was the kind of like the worst position it got to? And secondly, you know, did you feel okay about saying this now? Or like, was there any threat of some of these guys still being about?
No, because I never really went into any much detail about them because the things that did happen were loads worse. But like I wanted it to be more a comedy. More a light comedy with maybe a little bit of dark undertone, right? But some of the things that happened, I mean, were more like Goodfellas or something. I mean, it's amazing how I could always talk myself out of a problem, right? And I was wanting this to be in the film, but I never got in the film. I mean, I would get threatened, and then I would say to the person that was a way to do me, I'd say, listen, I'm going to tell you this for your own good, okay? I'm just making you aware of the situation. I've got a very bad heart. I've got a heart condition that, you know that football player, Asa Hartford, plays for Manchester City in Scotland? He's got the same thing. Now, if you hit me and you happen to hit me in the wrong bit, I'll probably die. So I'm just making you aware of that. Just making you aware. And then they just say, oh, fuck off, or something like that. Then they just leave me. I mean,
like, the idea is to put you in harm's way.
Yeah. So I just used to talk my way out of it. But I mean, I got beat up a few times, but it was there was about other things, like, you know, so come with the terror there.
It's amazing. I mean, all I could imagine was any of my kids being in this position, you know. It suddenly switched in your head from positions where you've done crazy stuff to like, what happens if my kids was in this position?
Yeah. It was just exciting for me. I mean, when you're young, there was loads of things where I could have got into really bother. That was nothing to do with the film, like. But I mean, this was going to be in the film, but see, in Dundee at the time, you used to have to join a gang. And my family used to be really, really rich. Then they became really, really poor overnight. It was like, from riches to rags, basically, instead of rags to riches. And so I went from the big flashy school to the kind of the tough school. And to get accepted, you needed to be in the gang. So you had to join the gang. And once we went up to Montrose, and I had this German bayonet with me, right, because I was in the gang, although I'd never use it or anything like that. But then the police came, and I went, fucking hell, the police. So I ran up this alleyway, and there was police at the other end as well. And I threw the bayonet away. And the cop came and says, right, son, right, come, you're arrested, you're lifted. Like, so he took me to the jail, right, the place, the prison holding cell or whatever. And he says, right, what were you doing with that bayonet? And I went, well, funnily enough, good question. I said, good question. I collect antiques memorabilia, and I know there's a very good shop in Montrose that looks for these items. So I was going to sell it. And the guy says, listen, mate, I'm going to give you a good kicking, right? So that was that. So, and then I said, look, why did you do it? And I told him the story about had to join the gang, blah, blah, blah. And he believed me, which was all true. And he says, look, I'm going to let you go. I'm keeping the knife. I'm going to let you go. And I says, oh, that's good. Thank you so much. Could you lend me money for the train? Because I missed the bus back. and he actually gave me money for the train, that cop. And I tell you what, he saved my life, because I could have been arrested for carrying an offensive weapon or something stupid like that, and I would have maybe gone to Borstal or whatever, right? So from that day forth, I became saintly. I joined the youth club. I helped the handicapped kids. I was dishing out food parcels to the old women and the old age pensioners. Seriously, mate, I changed my life. That was a turning point.
Yeah, and I love the fact that what that story really shows is that your fast talking could get you out of a lot, but you'd still have the odd kicking along the way.
Yeah, it was mad. But anyway, so there you go. Nice times, happy days,
And when you were talking about the, in the film, the earlier gigs which led to Iron Maiden, there was so many kind of really cool names which were coming out there of bands which kind of went on to degreeing levels of success. Were there any of those kind of early gigs? And also, I don't want to it's up to you if you want to say it, but like there's one band you mentioned which you sort of turned down, and I'm wondering if that was a genuine story.
Oh, what, U2?
Yeah, I didn't want to mention it in case you want to keep that one back.
No, it was what actually happened, that it's a bit complicated. We had to shoot the film in two shoots, because we had a different director on the first shoot, and I fired him, right? So I did the second shoot. But because of the continuity thing and dialogue and all that, we had to change the band that we were talking about originally. It was kind of complicated, so we ended up using U2. But actually, the band that I turned down, I talked to my mate George Duffus at Cosmos Ages, who sadly died a couple of years ago. I used to get all the bands from him, and he said to me, Dave, I've got this brilliant new band, they're fantastic, from New York, got this girl singer, beautiful, awesome. I said, what are they called? He says, well, it's a double bill. It's this band and the Ramones. I said, well, what's the band called? He said, it's called Blondie. I went, never heard of them.
I knew it was Blondie. I knew from your description.
Did you? Yeah. He said, I never heard of them, George. I want to book Susie and the Banshees. He says, no, listen, it's Blondie with the Ramones. Superb. I went, look, just go away. Now, see if it had been today, he would have just sent me a video or a clip or fired me off a YouTube link or something like that, And I would have gone, whoa, yes, you know what I mean? But in these days, believe it or not, you'd have to get something sent in the post. This is what they look like, and get your tape and all that. So that was the one I turned down. So, but it wasn't U2. But funnily enough, we toured with U2 with Placebo years later. We did about 13 shows with them. So that was good.
Oh, nice. And of course, like you're working on this film with, I'm guessing, somewhat of a limited budget, although it looks amazing for whatever budget you did it on. But the soundtrack must have been so important to you, being from the music business. Yeah,
it was very, very important. And I never realised how it was expensive, the soundtrack, because you do have to pay people to, and getting these clips at the start, I had to take out 2 or 3 brilliant clips that I had that were just going to cost too much money. One was Shergar, because I was right into horses, and there was this brilliant Shergar one in the Derby. You had to drop that because it was going to cost 20 grand. Dave Neary goal for Scotland against Brazil was going to cost 20 grand. Had to drop that. But they were in the film festival once. So at least the film festival people saw that. But the soundtrack, I thought, I want it to be a mix of bands that I've promoted, bands that I manage, and bands that I own the publishing on. and bands that I just quite like. So I ended up, and local bands. So I ended up with 3 tracks from The View, who are from Dundee, and I managed Kyle Faulkner at the time. And the band called The Mirror Trap in St Andrew and Woolen Mill, who are from Dundee. And then Colour of Fire, who we had the record track on, and we owned the recording. And then bands I promoted like Fisher's Head and like loads of other bands, like, you know. So I mean, every band had a kind of connection apart from what was the one, that Howlin' Wolf thing, you know. So it was good.
And I love the bit in the film where it all starts to come together with Iron Maiden, and you suddenly realise that you haven't read the contract at all, and you've got all this stuff to come together, going to full Del Boy mode to get everything done.
That's absolutely true. I mean, I was sent 200 posters by Iron Maiden's record company, I presume, and I just put them in the cupboard, you know. And my dad said to me one day, he says, "Son," it was about 3 days before the gig, "you've got posters in the cupboard there." I went, "Yeah, I'll put them up in the morning, Dad." He says, "Do you expect this gig to sell itself, son? Do you expect? Let's get these posters up." So me and my dad were going around in his van in the morning, sticking up posters 2 days before the gig, like, you know. And then, of course, it came to the day of the gig, and the where's the crew? And I actually never knew what crew were. I thought he was talking about a ship or something, or sailing boat or something. I went, how do you mean? He says, crew. I says, what crew? He says, humpers. I went, people to help with the gear. I went, oh, right. Oh, there they are, there. And it was 4 guys sitting across at Hill Samuel's, the jewellers. They were sitting on there just loitering, like smoking dope or something. And I said, "Oh, boys, have you much on today?" And he says, "No, we're not busy, like, you know." I said, "Come on, sort of unload this truck." And then they asked for the food. I went, "How do you mean?" "The breakfast." I went, how do you mean breakfast?" I said, "There's a cafe around the corner. You're meant to supply it." I went, "Oh, right, aye. And lunch and dinner." So I phoned my mum. And she says, "What is it?" I said, "Could you come and make dinner for 30 people or whatever, breakfast?" She said, "What are you talking about?" And "I've not got any money." I said, "Well, that big whiskey bottle that you've got with all the money in it for your holiday, could you not crack it open?" She said, "Oh, Christ," you know. So she did that, and she went to Asda and got loads of bacon and rolls, and came down. My dad was buttering the rolls, my mum was doing the bacon. It was madness, like, you know, total madness.
And then what goes through your mind at that moment where you finally got Iron Maiden there on stage, everything's come together?
Oh, well, when it all came, I mean, it was just ridiculous. I mean, because we'd only sold 200 tickets advance, and the place held 2,400. And I just went to the pub with the band, and they kept saying how the tickets going. I went, "Awesome, superb, it's going to be great." And for some obscure reason, there was about 1,100 people walk up. So we ended up doing about 1,500 people. It was like God just must have said, "Oh, look, I'm going to help this guy out." And boom, loads of people came. And they came from all over, you know. Crieff, Perth, Kilmarnock, Ayr, you know, Aberdeen, Glasgow, Edinburgh. So the word was sort of going round, you know, and they all turned up on the night. So, and I just thought I'd got away with it big style, you know. And the band were playing and the crowd were jumping, and it was like great, you know. And we went to the Taste Centre Hotel after, had a good night at the Taste Centre, had a few drinks. And in real life, what actually happened was we divvied the money up, and I went to the casino and lost it all on roulette. Yeah, and I went home. I had to walk home because I had no money for a taxi. And I walked home, and my dad, we used to share a room in the multis, and it was a pokey little flat and everything, like, and he was in the next bed to me. He said, "So how did it go, son?" I went, "Oh, it went great. It was a really big crowd." He says, "So proud of you, son. Awfully proud of you, son." And I just turned my head to the wall and felt disaster. You know what? I felt a complete prick, like, you know, because I'd lost all the money. So that was that.
And was that the learning moment for you where you kind of took it more seriously?
Yeah, it was no, no, because I have to say there was loads more shambolic efforts before I got my act together. eventually. But yeah, that was definitely. It was so scary. Like, I used to have nightmares about. It's a big venue. What if only a couple of hundred people turn up? I'm going to look a real prick, and that girl I'm trying to impress will think I'm an idiot, like, and all that sort of stuff, And you wake up in a cold sweat, and you'd arrive in the morning of the gig, and you smoke and go, and then of course this huge Arctic truck rolls up, because I was still expecting a little minivan or something, like a Ford Transit as usual, like the usual bands we promote. And this huge truck came, and I thought, fucking hell, Jesus, what's going to happen here? I'm going to get some people to unload it.
I mean, it was even down to, and again, I assume this was kind of something which had actually happened. The band had just had a big hit going into it, which maybe accounted for like quite a lot of the sales.
Yeah. Well, what happened was, I think the album, well, I'm sure the album went in at number 4 the day of the gig. So it was obviously selling well and all that sort of stuff. But this is in days before Twitter and social media and all that sort of nonsense, like, But it went in at number 4. So that was that. So if we'd got them the week after, we probably would have done like 2,500 or something. But we did a really good crowd. And I kind of got away with it. And funnily enough, I'm going out with Iron Maiden next week with the manager. We asked him to help us promote the film in America, and he come back saying, "Yeah, Dave, you still owe me a dinner." I went, "Oh, that's right. I'm in London next week." He says, "Like, let's go to the Dog and Fox where we were going to go the last time before the COVID." So I'm going out with them next Wednesday night, Shaki and the boys. So that'll be great. It's really good. It's brilliant. I'm really looking forward to it because I've not seen them since the film, and they really liked the film. Oh, there's a lot to tell you about that. To get their cooperation and the things we needed to do in the meetings we had, but they've been brilliant, and so I'm looking forward to it next week.
That's amazing. And I did just want to speak to quickly some of the other bands that you've worked with. So you've got Placebo, Green Day, Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins. Is there something that you kind of see in these bands, or were some of these established a bit more at the time, or were they all kind of fairly early on in their career when you started getting involved?
Well, Placebo had only done 3 gigs, and then we started being their manager. So that's because we just loved the demo. They had 6 tracks on it, and 5 of the tracks went top 30, I think. Then with Nirvana, we were lucky because we worked with an agent called Russell Warby who did all these American bands. So we did all the bands that he had, like Mudhoney and Screaming Trees, Nirvana and Melvins and all that sort of stuff. So we got Nirvana, and they just took off, and Tad and loads of bands. And then Green Day. I remember when we got Green Day, I had to go to lunch with ITB, Barry Dickens and Martin Horn. And we went to an Italian restaurant, and Barry Dickens, who owned ITB with Rod McSween, said, shall we give Dave Green Day? And Martin was, yeah, why not? And Barry was, yeah, okay, you can do Green Day. So that was it. So, and we did about 20 shows with Green Day, and 15, 16 with Nirvana, and 20 with Smashing Pumpkins, and 20 with Foo Fighters. And it was just lucky, just pure luck, really. But it was, you have to be in the right place at the right time, and I think if you get on well with people, they do you favors, and things happen, like.
Yeah, I mean, there's some, like, all those bands I could name as being part of the soundtrack of when I was going out to rock clubs when I was younger. But I think Placebo, for some reason, that hits in my head because I remember them breaking while I was going out to the clubs and stuff. So that one always feels a very special place in my heart.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for saying it. Well, the new album's doing fantastic. The new tour's selling like hot cakes, as they say. It's going amazing. We're selling out gigs a year in advance. Like, it's absolutely unbelievable. American tour's going great. And funnily enough, the next film I'm doing is set in London, 1986 to 1994. And Placebo are going to be involved in that. And the soundtrack of that, if you can imagine all the stuff I was doing between 1996 and 1994, is going to be unbelievable, So, and it follows the story of me and my mate.
Oh, just lost you for a second there, Dave.
Scott Young, who was a film, unfortunately. So, you still there?
I cannot wait for the follow-up. Yeah, sorry, you just paused for a second. Yeah, that sounds absolutely amazing. Hopefully you'll come back and talk about it at the time. Before we do let you go, as someone who's got his finger on the pulse of the music business, what are the bands we should be looking out for we might not have heard of at this point?
Well, you caught me on the hop at that one. I mean, I'll tell you a band that should be massive that aren't massive. It's a band called the La Fontaines from Glasgow, who are absolutely superb. But it's been quiet for a lot of bands. They've not had the chance to come through because of this COVID thing. But my daughter's the one to ask about the band. She's 15, and she told me about Billie Eilish about 5 years ago. When she was about 10, she said, "Dad, there's this girl called Billie Eilish. You should promote her." I went, "Who?" So anyhow, a couple of years later, I tried to get her, but it was about $1 million a show. So my daughter is head of A&R now for Riverman. So that's the one I ask.
Also, when this one goes out, we're putting this out on the radio tomorrow. We're doing a St. Patrick's Day special, again, with someone who's so versed in music. What Irish track do you want to hear tomorrow?
Well, I love the Pogues. I mean, I just love the Pogues, you know what I mean? And anything from the Pogues, you know, maybe... in fact, I used to knock about with the Pogues in King's Cross when I lived in King's Cross. But I love when they do the Irish Rover, and they used to slap his head on with a tray when they singing it. It was crazy times, like, you know. So anything by the Pogues or the Dubliners or anything like that, you know. Oh, the Dubliners are great. Off to Dublin in the green, is it? No, not that one.
Double bill, surely.
Oh, Black Velvet Band, the Dubliners. You know,
okay.
Her eyes they shone like diamonds. I thought her the queen of the land. Fantastic! I love the Irish. They're brilliant. Mental. I'm going to Dublin. I'm going to Dublin on Friday. Yes, the band to watch is Dea Matrona, who I co-manage with my Irish friend Aidan. Now they are brilliant. Check them out. Go on Google. Dea Matrona. 2 girls, millions of views. The Eagles love them. Led Zeppelin, Robert Plant loves them. They're great. They're only 19 and 20-year-old. I'm going to Dublin to see them on Friday night. That's the one to watch.
Definitely, we will be looking out for them. I will even find a track of theirs to shove in as well.
Yeah, please.
And I better love the Irish. My mum's one of them. So
yeah, great. Irish are great. Many a heavy night in Dublin. I could tell you a few stories about that. And in London, because I used to knock about with loads of the Irish in London. Great fun.
Excellent. Have you ever been to a little place called Portrush?
No, but I've been to a place called Kilkenny, which was it no Kinsale. They have loads of great restaurants there in Kinsale. They have more Michelin restaurants per square mile, I think, than any place in the world. But I've never been to Portrush. But I think my friend's got a coffee shop there. I'm going to go there one day.
Fantastic. Well, that's where my mum hails from anyway, on a very
nice one.
Final note. Thank you very much, Dave. As I say, the film is absolutely amazing. Sorry, when is it out? Where can people find it?
Are you talking about America here? It's March 29th, but in the UK it's out just now. So.
Oh, excellent. Please do look it up, guys. Again, it is an amazing film. Is it out on VOD or is it in cinemas at the moment?
No, it was in cinemas in the UK. It was the #1 box office new release when it came out a year ago. But most of the interviews I'm doing just now are for America. So I thought you were for America, but are you for the UK? Because if you're for the UK, it's on iTunes and all that sort of stuff. But it was #1 new release box office. And then all the cinemas shut. So it was doing really good. So you could get it on Amazon, iTunes, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, it is really an unbelievable story, which just happens to be true, which some of the best ones are. Thank you very much, Dave. As I say, please do come back when the new film's out.
Yeah, top man. Have a great day, and thank you so much for having me. Okay, good luck.
Thank you, Dave. Take care.
See ya. Bye.
That was the wonderful Dave McLean. Guys, please do tune in for the radio version tomorrow, where we're playing some tunes and have loads of Irish celebration as well. We've also got later on tonight, I'm going to remind myself of my guest tonight. It is Wes, whose surname is currently escaping me. Wes Miller, of course. Sorry, filmmaker behind the new film Day to Day, starring Bruce Willis, amongst others. So that's going to be a great chat. That's coming up on the hour at 6 o'clock here in the UK, whatever on the hour is for you personally. Thank you very much for joining us. I've been Doug the Squee. That was my show. And please remember, in a world where you can be absolutely anything, please be kind.